The Star Seeker wasn't supposed to land on this planet. In fact, it wasn't supposed to land anywhere at all. The small mining survey ship was designed for quick scans of potentially resource-rich planets, not planetary exploration. But as Captain Tom Reed always said, space has other plans. The trouble started when a small asteroid, no bigger than a tennis ball, struck their sensor array. On any other day, the ship's shields would have easily deflected it. However, engineer Mike Foster had powered them down for routine maintenance, leaving the ship vulnerable for just 7 minutes. 7 minutes was all it took for everything to go wrong. Status report. Tom shouted over the blaring alarms, gripping his chair as the ship shuddered violently. Primary systems failing. Mike called back from his station, his fingers dancing across 3 different control panels. We're losing power to the main engine. Backup systems are, well, they're not responding either. From her position at the navigation console, Anna Wells, the ship's geologist, watched as the unknown planet grew larger in their view screen. Its surface was a mix of blues and greens, remarkably similar to Earth. Captain, we're being pulled into the atmosphere. If we don't stabilize now, we're going to crash. Tell me something I don't know, Tom muttered. Then louder, David, secure all loose equipment in the medical bay. Mike, give me whatever power you can to the landing thrusters. Anna, find us the softest spot to crash, preferably somewhere flat. David Clark, the medical officer, didn't waste time responding. The sound of his boots could be heard clattering down the corridor as he rushed to secure his equipment. The next 3 minutes were a chaos of flashing lights, screaming metal, and desperate attempts to keep the Star Seeker from breaking apart. Anna managed to direct their descent toward what looked like a grassy plain, while Mike performed what he would later call engineering miracles with duct tape and prayers. The landing, if you could call it that, was more like a controlled fall. The Star Seeker skidded across the ground for nearly half a kilometer, leaving a deep trench in its wake, before finally coming to rest at the edge of a forest. Inside the ship, the crew slowly picked themselves up from where they'd braced for impact. Remarkably, no one was seriously hurt, though David insisted on checking everyone for concussions. Well, Tom said, brushing some debris off his uniform, that could have been worse. How exactly? Mike asked, nursing a bump on his head. We're stranded on an unknown planet with a broken ship and no way to call for help. We could be dead, Anna pointed out helpfully, already checking the atmospheric readings on her tablet. Her eyes widened. Captain, you're going to want to see this. The readings showed something impossible. The atmosphere outside was almost identical to Earth's. The gravity was just slightly lighter, and the temperature was a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius. It's like someone terraformed this place, David said, looking over Anna's shoulder at the readings. Or maybe we just got lucky, Tom replied, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. Mike, what's the damage report? The engineer consulted his diagnostics panel. Communication systems are completely fried. Life support is stable. Main engine needs major repairs, but the good news is most of our survey equipment is still working. So we can't call for help, but at least we can study the rocks while we're stranded, Anna said with forced cheerfulness. Tom walked to the main viewport, studying the landscape outside. The grass was a shade too blue to be Earth-like, and the trees at the forest's edge had leaves that seemed to shimmer even though there was no wind. Something about this place felt too perfect, too convenient. All right, here's the plan, he announced, turning back to his crew. We need materials to repair the ship. Anna, you and Mike survey the immediate area for anything useful. David, set up a temporary medical station. Just in case. I'll secure the ship and set up basic defenses. As the crew moved to their tasks, none of them noticed the small metallic probe that emerged from the ground near their landing site, its ancient sensors activating for the first time in millennia. Deep below the surface, something that had been sleeping for a very long time began to wake up. The humans hadn't just crashed on an empty planet. They had accidentally stumbled into someone else's home. 2 days after their crash landing, Anna's survey equipment detected something odd. She was scanning the ground near the ship for useful minerals when her device started beeping frantically. "Captain," she called out, staring at her screen. "You need to see this. There's a huge hollow space under our feet. And I mean huge, like an entire city huge." Tom walked over, wiping grease from his hands. He'd been helping Mike try to fix the communications array with little success. "How far down?" "About 50 meters, Anna replied, adjusting her scanner. "And there's something else. The walls of the cavity. They're too perfect to be natural. Someone built this." The discovery changed everything. Within hours, the crew had located what appeared to be an entrance, a large circular metal plate embedded in the ground about a kilometer from their crash site. It was covered in soil and plants, but once they cleared it away, they found strange symbols etched into its surface. "Should we try to open it?" David asked, running his hand over the smooth metal. Despite appearing ancient, it showed no signs of rust or decay. "We don't have much choice," Tom said. "We need materials to fix the ship, and whatever's down there might have what we need." Mike studied the edge of the metal plate. "There's a mechanism here. Simple, actually. It looks like it works on basic mechanical principles, no complex electronics." He pressed a sequence of raised symbols, and to everyone's surprise, the plate began to move with a soft hiss. "That was easy," David said nervously. "Too easy," Tom agreed, switching on his flashlight. "Stay alert. Mike, you're with me. Anna, David, watch our backs." The tunnel leading down was like nothing they'd ever seen. The walls were made of a silvery metal that seemed to absorb and reflect their flashlight beams at the same time. Their footsteps echoed strangely, as if the air itself was different here. After descending for about 10 minutes, they reached a vast chamber that took their breath away. It stretched farther than their lights could reach, filled with rows upon rows of transparent pods. Each pod was about the size of a car, and through their frosted surfaces, they could see shadowy shapes inside. "They're stasis pods," David whispered, his medical training kicking in as he examined the nearest one. "And they're still active. Look at these readings. There are living beings in here." Mike wandered over to what looked like a control panel. "This technology is amazing, but it's also familiar somehow, like they thought about things the same way we do." He reached out to touch the panel. "Mike, wait," Tom started to say, but it was too late. The panel lit up under Mike's touch, and suddenly the entire chamber was flooded with soft blue light. Displays and screens they hadn't even noticed began to activate all around them. A gentle voice filled the air, speaking in a language none of them understood. But as they watched, the voice seemed to analyze their own language from their shocked exclamations, and within minutes it was speaking in broken English. "Welcome, visitors. You have activated emergency protocols. Beginning revival sequence." "Oh no," Mike said, backing away from the panel. "I didn't mean to." Unable to stop sequence, the voice continued. "Primary inhabitants will awaken in 24 hours. Please remain for official contact." The pods nearest to them began to hum, their frosted surfaces slowly becoming clearer. Inside, they could now clearly see humanoid figures, peaceful in their ancient sleep. "Captain," David said, his voice shaking slightly, "I think we just woke up the owners of this planet." Tom looked around at the endless rows of pods, then at his startled crew. "Well, team, looks like we're about to have some company. Mike, get back to the ship and grab our first contact protocols. David, monitor these life signs. Anna, start documenting everything. We need to be ready when they wake up." As the crew scrambled to prepare, more and more systems throughout the underground city began to activate. Lights flickered on in distant chambers, and the hum of ancient machinery filled the air. In 24 hours, this empty planet would become a lot more crowded. And it was all because Mike couldn't keep his hands to himself. The next 24 hours were the longest of the crew's lives. They had set up a temporary base at the entrance of the underground city, none of them willing to return to the ship and possibly miss the awakening. Tom had insisted they all wear their formal uniforms, even though they were slightly wrinkled from being stored in emergency bags. "Remember," Tom said for the 10th time, checking his tablet, "we follow first contact protocols. No sudden movements, no aggressive gestures. And Mike, don't touch anything." I know," Mike grumbled. He hadn't heard the end of it since accidentally starting the revival sequence. The gentle voice that had been counting down suddenly announced, "Revival sequence complete. Beginning awakening procedures." They watched as the first pod's surface became completely clear. Inside, a tall figure slowly opened its eyes. The pod's lid lifted with a soft hiss, releasing a cloud of sweet-smelling mist. The being that stepped out looked surprisingly human-like, except for their silvery skin and slightly larger eyes. They wore simple white clothing that seemed to shift colors slightly as they moved. David stepped forward with his medical scanner, but Tom gently pulled him back. "Let them make the first move," he whispered. The being looked at each of them carefully, then smiled. When they spoke, their voice was musical and clear. "Welcome, accidental visitors. I am the first watcher. We are the sleepers, and you have awakened us from our long rest." More pods were opening now, releasing dozens of similar beings. Unlike the humans' nervous tension, the sleepers seemed completely calm and curious. "We apologize for the intrusion," Tom said formally. "We are humans from Earth, and our ship crashed on your planet." The first watcher's smile grew wider. "Ah, a happy accident then. We have been waiting for someone to find us, though we did not expect it to happen quite like this." Anna couldn't contain her curiosity any longer. "Waiting? How long have you been sleeping?" "By your time measurements, approximately 50,000 years, the first watcher replied casually, as if discussing yesterday's weather. "Our sun was dying, you see. Rather than leave our home, we chose to sleep until either our sun recovered or someone with the technology to help us arrived." Mike's jaw dropped. 50,000 years. But your technology still works perfectly. "Of course," another sleeper said, joining the conversation. "We built things to last. Unlike your ship, which seems to have had some difficulties." Their eyes twinkled with amusement. Tom cleared his throat. "About that, we could use some help repairing our communication system." "We would be happy to help," the first watcher said. "But first, we must thank you. Your arrival has done more than wake us. It has saved us. Your ship's crash landing activated our planet's old terraforming systems. The surface is becoming habitable again." As if to prove their point, a gentle rumble shook the chamber. Far above, the crew's sensors would later show that dormant machines were coming to life all across the planet, beginning the process of rebuilding the atmosphere and stabilizing the environment. It was also very entertaining to watch your engineer activate our systems by randomly pressing buttons, a younger-looking sleeper added, causing several others to laugh musically. Mike turned red. "I didn't. I was trying to." "Do not be embarrassed," the first watcher said kindly. "Sometimes the best discoveries come from unexpected actions. We have been watching you since you crashed. Your species is fascinating. So young, so uncertain, yet so adaptable." More sleepers were gathering now, each looking at the humans with friendly curiosity. Some were already examining the humans' equipment with obvious interest, while others were bringing out their own devices, elegant tools that seemed to float in the air. "Perhaps," the first watcher said thoughtfully, "this meeting was not an accident at all, but destiny. We have the knowledge of ages, but you have the spirit of explorers. Together, we might build something remarkable." Tom looked at his crew, then back at the sleepers. "We would be honored to work with you." And so began the strangest partnership in human history, all because of a crashed ship, a curious engineer, and some accidentally pushed buttons. No one knew it yet, But this was just the beginning of how humans would accidentally take over a planet. A week after the awakening, the underground city had become a fascinating mix of human and sleeper activity. The Star Seeker's crew found themselves in the middle of what Tom called the strangest sharing session in human history. The main chamber had been transformed into a learning center. Sleepers gathered around Mike as he explained the basics of human space travel, their large eyes widening at his descriptions of Earth's noisy, fuel-burning rockets. "You mean you actually set fire to chemicals to reach space?" one young sleeper asked, looking both horrified and impressed. Mike nodded, drawing a rough diagram. "Sometimes the simple solutions work best. Sure, it's not as elegant as your gravity drives, but it gets the job done." Nearby, Anna was having her own interesting exchange with a group of sleeper scientists. They had brought out their geological survey equipment, beautiful crystalline devices that floated in the air and created 3D maps of mineral deposits. "This is amazing," Anna said, watching the holographic display. "But why do you need to mine it all? Your technology seems advanced enough to create any materials you need." The lead sleeper scientist, who had introduced himself as the Knowledge Keeper, smiled. "Creating materials uses more energy than finding them naturally. We learned long ago that working with nature is better than trying to replace it." At the medical station, David was comparing notes with the sleeper healers. Their medicine was incredibly advanced, yet they were fascinated by human first aid techniques. "Sometimes you don't have access to healing pods," David explained while demonstrating how to make a splint. "You have to work with what you have." "Fascinating," a sleeper healer said, carefully wrapping a bandage around a practice dummy. "Your species has developed such creative solutions to limitations. We focused so much on perfecting our technology that we never considered simpler alternatives." Tom spent most of his time with the First Watcher, discussing their respective civilizations. The more they talked, the more they realized how different and complementary their approaches to life were. "Your people planned everything so carefully," Tom observed, watching sleepers methodically organizing their revival equipment. "Every action calculated, every outcome considered." The First Watcher nodded. "And your people, you embrace chaos. You find opportunities in accidents, like how you crashed here and accidentally saved our world." They paused, then added with a twinkle in their eye, "Or how your engineer activated our systems by randomly pressing buttons." "Are you ever going to let Mike live that down?" Tom asked, grinning. "Never," the First Watcher replied cheerfully. "It's too perfect an example of how humans operate, and how well it works, despite our initial doubts." As the day progressed, more cultural exchanges took place. The sleepers were particularly amused by human food. They had been surviving on synthesized nutrients for so long that they'd forgotten about cooking. When Anna shared her emergency ration of chocolate, several sleepers nearly fainted from the taste. "How do you function with such intense flavors?" one asked, looking at the chocolate bar with a mix of fear and longing. The humans, in turn, were amazed by sleeper art. Their walls could generate moving images that responded to emotions, creating ever-changing murals that reflected the feelings of those nearby. "Your art is alive," Mike said, watching the wall near him shift from blue to gold as he smiled. "And your art is frozen in time, capturing single moments forever," a sleeper artist replied. Both had their beauty. By evening, both groups had learned more than they expected. The sleepers were beginning to appreciate human spontaneity and resourcefulness, while the humans were learning the value of careful planning and harmony with technology. "You know," Tom said to the First Watcher as they watched their people interact, "when we crashed here, I thought we were in trouble. Instead, we might have found something better than any mining survey could have discovered." "Indeed," the First Watcher replied. "Though I do wonder what will happen when more of your people arrive. They surely must be looking for you by now." Tom hadn't thought about that. Somewhere above them, rescue ships might already be on their way. and things were about to get much more interesting. The rescue fleet arrived exactly 2 weeks after the Star Seeker's crash landing. 3 large ships descended through the atmosphere, their engines humming much more smoothly than the Star Seeker ever had. "Well," Tom said, watching from the surface alongside the first watcher, "this should be interesting." The first watcher nodded calmly. "Shall we give them a proper welcome? Perhaps with fewer accidentally pushed buttons this time." Before Tom could reply, Mike called out from behind them, "I heard that," causing several nearby sleepers to laugh musically. The largest rescue ship landed first. Its name, Diplomatic Envoy, was written in large letters across its hull. Tom groaned. Of all the rescue ships they could have sent, they had to send the diplomats. The ship's main door opened with a dramatic hiss, and out walked Ambassador Roberts, wearing his most formal uniform and a very serious expression. He was followed by a team of diplomatic officers, all carrying tablets and looking extremely official. The ambassador stopped dead in his tracks when he saw the group waiting for him, a mix of humans in slightly dirty uniforms and tall, silvery-skinned beings who seemed to glow in the sunlight. "Captain Reed," the ambassador said slowly, "your distress signal indicated a crash landing. It did not mention first contact with an alien civilization." "Well, sir," Tom replied, trying not to smile, "it's a bit of a funny story." "What Captain Reed means," the first watcher interrupted smoothly, "is that we are the sleepers, and your people have awakened us from our long hibernation. We welcome you to our world." The ambassador's diplomatic training kicked in. He straightened his uniform and made a formal bow. "On behalf of Earth and the Human Alliance, we extend our greetings and apologize for any intrusion." "Oh no," the first watcher said, their eyes twinkling. "The intrusion was quite welcome. In fact, according to our ancient laws, those who wake the sleepers become our designated planetary administrators." There was a moment of complete silence. Tom turned to stare at the first watcher, who winked at him, something they had learned from watching the humans. The ambassador's eyes widened. "Planetary administrators." "Yes." Another sleeper stepped forward, holding what appeared to be an ancient scroll. "It's quite clear in our laws. The ones who wake us must guide us in the new era. Your Captain Reed and his crew have already begun this process admirably." Tom tried to interrupt. "I don't think that's really necessary." "It's more than necessary," the first watcher insisted. "Your people have shown remarkable ability to adapt and find solutions we would never have considered. For instance, your engineer Mike's innovative approach to our control systems." Mike groaned in the background. "Not the button story again." The ambassador looked increasingly confused. "Let me understand this correctly. You want us to administer your planet?" "Of course," the first watcher said enthusiastically. "We've already begun integrating our technologies. Your medical officer has introduced fascinating new approaches to our healing practices. Your geologist has shown us more efficient mining techniques. And your engineer, well, he has certainly shown us new ways to interact with our technology." The diplomatic team was frantically taking notes. One of them whispered to the ambassador, "Sir, this could be the most significant diplomatic opportunity in human history." The ambassador straightened up again. "In that case, we would be honored to establish a formal diplomatic relationship and discuss the terms of this administrative role." "Excellent." The first watcher clapped their hands. "We'll prepare the traditional ceremony right away. It involves some dancing, a few simple oaths, and, of course, the ritual of pressing random buttons." Tom caught the slight smile on the first watcher's face and suddenly realized what they were doing. The sleepers were playing along with human bureaucracy, turning what could have been a complex diplomatic situation into something both sides could enjoy. As the ambassador and his team were led away to prepare for the ceremony, Tom whispered to the first watcher, "That thing about planetary administrators, you made that up, didn't you?" The first watcher's eyes sparkled. "Let's just say we've learned that sometimes the best solutions come from creative accidents. Besides, watching your diplomats try to dance should be very entertaining." And that's how a crash landing, some accidentally pushed buttons, and a made-up ancient law led to humans becoming the official administrators of an alien planet. 3 months after the diplomatic ceremony, which had indeed included some very awkward dancing by the ambassador, the planet was buzzing with activity. Human ships arrived regularly now, bringing scientists, engineers, and curious settlers who wanted to be part of this unique experiment in cooperation. The Sleeper's underground city had expanded upward, with beautiful crystal structures now rising from the surface like growing trees. Humans had added their own touch, practical metal buildings, and busy landing pads scattered between the elegant alien towers. Tom sat in his new office, which was really just a corner of a giant crystal dome with a desk made from recycled parts of the Starseeker. He was reading the latest report when Mike burst in, looking excited. "Captain, you won't believe what just happened." Mike was practically bouncing. "The Sleepers want to use my button-pressing technique as an official training method." Tom looked up, sure he had misheard. "Your what?" "Remember how I accidentally activated their systems by randomly pressing buttons?" Mike grinned. "Well, they've been studying how humans interact with technology, and they think our chaotic approach actually works better than their careful planning sometimes." "You're kidding." "Nope. They're calling it the Foster method, trying random solutions until something works. They say it helps them think outside their very organized boxes." Meanwhile, in the new medical center, David was having his own breakthrough. He had combined the Sleeper's advanced healing pods with basic human first aid techniques. The result was a hybrid system that worked better than either approach alone. "It's simple, really," he explained to a group of human and Sleeper medical students. "Sometimes you need the advanced technology, and sometimes you just need a bandage and some common sense. The trick is knowing when to use which." Anna had perhaps made the biggest discovery. Working with Sleeper scientists, she found that their old mining AI systems were too careful, too precise. But when they added human intuition to the equation, they found resources in places the AI had dismissed as impractical. "The AI thinks in straight lines," Anna told her team, pointing at a 3D map. "But humans think in squiggles. Sometimes you need to go around the mountain instead of through it." The first watcher observed all this with growing amusement. They were walking with Tom through a new garden where earth plants grew alongside local species, creating strange but beautiful combinations. "Your people have changed everything," they said, watching a human child playing with a Sleeper youth, both giggling at some shared joke. "But not in the way we expected." "Is that a problem?" Tom asked. "On the contrary. We were so focused on perfection that we forgot about innovation. Your people crash into problems and somehow turn them into opportunities. Like that." They pointed to where a group of humans had set up a coffee shop inside one of the crystal towers. The coffee shop had become the heart of the community. Sleepers had discovered they loved the taste of coffee, while humans couldn't get enough of the Sleepers' dream fruit tea. Important decisions were now made over cups of both drinks, often with someone's feet up on the table, a human habit that had scandalized the Sleepers at first, but which they now found strangely comfortable. "Did you ever imagine it would work out like this?" Tom asked, watching a Sleeper trying to figure out how to eat a donut without getting sugar on their shimmering clothes. "Not in a million years," the first watcher admitted. "We expected to wake up to a fully developed, highly organized civilization that could help us restore our world. Instead, we got humans, wonderfully chaotic, incredibly adaptable humans who solve problems by accidentally creating new ones and somehow making it all work." "Speaking of accidents," Tom said, checking his tablet, "the ambassador's latest report says 3 more colonies want to send settlers here." The first watcher smiled. "Perfect. The more chaos, the better. After 50,000 years of perfect order, we could use a little more. What does Mike call it? Freestyle problem solving." Tom laughed. And so the integration continued, with humans bringing their unique brand of organized chaos to a civilization that had forgotten how to improvise. The planet wasn't just surviving. It was thriving in ways neither species had imagined possible. All because of one crashed ship and some accidentally pushed buttons. 5 years after the Starseeker's crash landing, the planet had transformed beyond recognition. The sleepers officially named it Accident Prime, partly as a joke, and partly because everyone agreed it was the perfect name for a world where the best things happened by mistake. On the 5-year anniversary of the crash, a celebration was held in the Central Plaza. The original Starseeker crew sat in places of honor, though Tom kept insisting they shouldn't make such a big deal about crashing a ship, but crashing it so perfectly. A young sleeper said, making the crowd laugh, "That takes real human skill." The plaza itself showed how much things had changed. Crystal towers rose into the sky, their surfaces covered in crawling earth vines that the sleepers had discovered made their buildings even stronger. Human children played alongside sleeper youth, all of them wearing clothes that were a mix of both cultures' styles. The air smelled of coffee, dream fruit, and the distinctive aroma of Mike's famous fusion barbecue. "Would you believe," Mike said to a group of admirers, "that they're now teaching my button-pushing technique at the new Space Academy? The Foster method of innovative accidents," the first watcher added solemnly, then broke into a very human-like grin. "It's our most popular course. Though I must say, nobody pushes buttons quite like the original." Anna was showing off the latest mining results. The combination of sleeper AI and human intuition had discovered more resources in 5 years than the original systems had found in 50,000. "Sometimes you have to trust your gut," she explained, "even if your gut tells you to dig in completely the wrong place." David had just returned from Earth, where he'd been teaching human doctors about the hybrid medical techniques developed on Accident Prime. "They thought I was crazy at first," he told the crowd, "until I showed them how combining simple bandages with advanced healing pods improved recovery times by 300%. Tom stood up to make a speech, but the first watcher interrupted him. "Before you begin, Captain Reed, we have an announcement to make." The plaza fell silent as the first watcher stepped forward, their silvery skin glowing in the evening light. 5 years ago, we tricked your diplomats with a made-up law about planetary administrators. They began, causing chuckles from those who remembered the awkward ceremony. Today, we want to make it real. The Sleeper Council has voted unanimously to officially declare humans as our chosen successors. Tom blinked in surprise. "But this is your planet, your home. And it still will be," the first watcher explained. "But we've learned something important from you humans. Sometimes the best way to lead is to step back and let others try new things. We want to be advisors, teachers, friends, but we want humans to take the lead in building our shared future. Even though we keep messing things up." Mike asked, "Especially because you keep messing things up?" Another sleeper shouted, making everyone laugh. "Your mistakes have brought us more progress than our careful planning ever did." The ambassador, who had long since given up wearing his formal uniform in favor of the more comfortable local style, stood up. "Are you sure about this?" "Completely," the first watcher said. "Look around you. Humans didn't take over our planet. You gave it new life. Your chaos balances our order. Your mistakes lead to our successes. Your accidents are our opportunities." Besides, they added with a twinkle in their eye, "someone needs to be in charge of teaching the next generation how to properly push buttons." Mike groaned as everyone laughed again. As the celebration continued into the night, with humans and sleepers dancing together under the stars, Tom looked around at what they had built. Crystal towers wrapped in earth vines. Children of both species playing together. Advanced technology working alongside simple solutions, a perfect blend of accident and design. "You know what the funny thing is?" he said to the first watcher. "We never did find those minerals we were originally looking for." "No," the first watcher agreed. "You found something much better. You found us, and we found you. And together we built something neither of us could have planned. And that's how humans accidentally took over a planet, not through conquest or cleverness, but through crashed ships, pushed buttons, and the wonderful art of making mistakes in exactly the right way. The end.